Currently in theaters is the re-release of Shin Godzilla, which has just received a 4K remaster 9 years after its initial release in 2016. I'm going to tell you something though, a little confession. I have never seen Shin Godzilla. I didn't watch it back in 2016, unfortunately, and in the years since, I've always had it on my watch list, but I never really got to it. Last week, I went to go see it in theaters, and I thought I'd talk to you guys a little bit about it. So what you might have expected to be a retrospective, perhaps, is not quite that. It is very much a first-time viewing of the movie and a review of it. But I am a huge fan of Godzilla. This is something that I think I've confessed a few times on here, which is I just love this character, and I love the lore surrounding Godzilla, and over the years all the movies and nowadays even TV shows that have been built around this character I've had mostly a lot of fun with, even when they get into the very silly territory. This takes place in Japan, where you see Godzilla essentially being born, and you're seeing how everybody is reacting to it, particularly on a government level, because the reactions that they're having are trying to plan some kind of a response to everything that's unfolding. And as the young Godzilla at first is, leaving a trail of destruction behind him, and then eventually growing into what we eventually know Godzilla as, in order to take him on, certain decisions have to be made, but that can lead to some mistakes along the way. And that is something which I think makes immediately the movie very fascinating. Seeing it sort of play out like this response is happening as things are unfolding was very interesting, because the movie starts off and there's an event taking place in the city, and you're like, what's happening? And eventually, when you're looking at all of the different meetings that are happening with bureaucrats and other high-ranking officials as they're trying to prepare some kind of a plan over here, they're realizing more and more that this is moving at an unprecedented rate, and there's also a lot of very extensive clashes happening when it comes to solutions that are being offered, which is one of the things that the movie hones in on, which is just looking at how sometimes things can become incredibly incompetent, and how there are so many mistakes that can be made, and just to explore that human aspect of it is what makes it a very fascinating viewing. I can't speak to everyone who saw the movie back in the day, but I remember that being a critique, the fact that you focus so much on the people. I don't think that that's a problem at all, because for me it comes down to how those moments are represented in a movie like this. If you are able to do a really compelling job with the human aspect of it, then I'm okay with watching more of that human aspect unfold. If you don't have that, then it becomes an issue. That's not the case over here. While some of the characters don't get as much time to develop perhaps as I would have liked, you understand where everyone is coming from when it comes to Godzilla. And to see also, a team of scientists trying to figure out how Godzilla operates and how he could have become what he is also incredibly fascinating, especially if you are a fan of the character, because in that way it also feels like you're studying Godzilla at the same time as everybody in the movie is studying Godzilla. And it's those moments that also make it a little more immersive, because you are really learning about this version as he is becoming what he is, and as such trying to figure out what the best way to stop him might be. Godzilla himself is great in the movie. You get plenty of him, and there are moments where that trail of destruction or moments with the atomic breath are breathtaking to look at. The visuals are extraordinary. A couple of VFX shots perhaps look a little, choppy in a couple of places, especially like early on with the younger version of Godzilla as it's sort of like wading through the streets, but beyond that, I think what they were able to do is fantastic, and it is there is a horrificness to Godzilla that is captured over here when everything is being launched at him and nothing seems to be hitting. The monster sequences in that sense are extraordinary, and they did a really great job of making the scale of Godzilla felt too, and the danger that he could bring to it. And Hideaki Anno, who is a very formidable director who has done incredible work with things like Evangelion, that's something that once again comes through over here. In fact, there's a lot of that on here. There's there's a lot of sprinkles of Evangelion. Even some of the score sounds like it's got some moments of that. You just heard a little bit of it in the intro of my channel video over there. So the way that the movie even handles that, I thought that was really, really nice. I actually love that score, in fact. I'm a little upset it took me this long to get to the movie because I was really a fan of a lot of things that were happening over here. Once you actually get towards the final act of the movie and you're also seeing how all the people who have been having these conflicting ideas, and the US is getting involved in this in some ways, and they're trying to make decisions that could have devastating effects on the people in Japan. And one of the decisions that's made towards a later part of the movie, it's made with this idea of, almost this negligence and, like uncaringness towards the fact that there is a history surrounding that idea that would not work. And it is that collective trauma and fear that is suddenly taking over. It's like, no, we need to not let something like that happen. Are you crazy? We need to make a decision. We need to work together, and we need to find a way to make, a certain, event not take place again. And it kind of ties back to the earlier parts of the movie where at one point, the idea of how big a threat could be and what could be happening is sort of discarded because it's like, no, none of those things are going to happen. You're talking silly. And the fact that situations, there are consequences to that, where it's like if you had listened to more rational voices in the room and had some ideas on what to do, some of this could have been avoided and there could have been more time to figure out something. And so having all of this come towards the end of the movie where it's like, ideas are being brought up that could completely disregard what would happen to millions of people, and the rational voices in the room finally going, let's just avoid certain egos and shows of displays of strength coming into the picture, and just really bring our best minds into the fray and really let them figure out a good solution. I think the message that is also given over there, it is an extremely powerful one, and it's why when things are approaching the final act of the movie, when it all starts to go down, what you eventually get is pretty thrilling. And I love how the final act of the movie plays out after that. And I think Shin Godzilla makes for a really effective Godzilla movie. I think it's kind of underrated, actually. Like, I know it's got some pretty solid ratings from critics and audiences in general, but I honestly think that in some cases it could probably be higher. Because aside from a couple of minor gripes with the movie, I do think that this is a really, really great Godzilla feature, and just one that captures the character really well, but also just gives so much to depth to the people of Japan as well, really making those stakes feel as massive as they are, because it does feel like a lot of people could die, and it never feels like they're just stock characters where it's like, oh, Godzilla will take a step and maybe some people will die, whatever, moving on. Every death and every single aspect of the destruction is taken seriously, and the way it manages to handle that was great. Even with the humor, there's a few moments where it's genuinely pretty funny, and there's a couple of chuckle-worthy moments in there. How they're able to handle all that is really a testament to it. And something worth noting is that there is in fact a black and white version of the movie that is going to be out later. So if you want to check out the movie in that version, that is also an option. Much like Godzilla -1 had the minus, color option at one point in time. So you definitely get to, experience it on that sense as well. For my money's worth, I'm going to give Shin Godzilla a 9 out of 10. And yeah, those are my thoughts on Shin Godzilla. I just really wanted to talk about it for a little bit, and I'm glad I got the opportunity to do so. I know that there's a lot of people who've already seen the movie before me, so I'm very curious to hear from, you guys, what you guys think of it. And if you've not seen Shin Godzilla, I try to keep the spoilers to a minimum. You can go and check it out. Guys, thank you very much as always for watching. Look forward to more videos very, very soon. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.